You guys got Star Wars?
Yeah.
I hate Star Wars.
I know what you're probably thinking. Revenge of the Sith? Is there really anything new to say about this movie? And my answer, no. Not really. In fact, when I started this channel like 7 years ago or whatever, I kind of made it my mission not to talk about things like Star Wars because there's so little new to be said and because the discourse is so loud, crowded, boring, and honestly just, like, stupid. But I happened to see Revenge of the Sith in theaters for the 20th anniversary this week, and it made me feel several different feelings, and I thought, why not? Just once. But I mean, yeah, there is so much Revenge of the Sith content out there, and I won't lie. I've consumed a lot of it. Just doing a little cursory searching before writing this, I scrolled by a countless number of, like, fixing the prequels and why the prequels suck videos, many of which I recognized from watching, like, 10 or 15 years ago, with a great deal of my formative years on YouTube as a consumer dedicating to fixing the prequels and analyzing, like, what went wrong. Before I get into that, though, you need to know that I am 25 years old. This means that I was 5 when Revenge of the Sith came out. It's the first Star Wars movie I remember coming out. I had the toys, I remember the commercials, I remember getting like Burger King meals and the little guys that came with those, and every conversation at school being about Star Wars. I bring this up because to me, Revenge of the Sith was, and always will be, Star Wars. One of the hard things about this franchise is its generational impact, and so many pointless, toxic conversations about what is or is not real Star Wars. The prequels are Star Wars to me. I never knew a world of movies without Star Wars, and I never knew the world of Star Wars without Revenge of the Sith. So I was shocked to learn around the age of 11 or 12 that other people didn't like the prequels, and like I literally couldn't wrap my head around that. Then, not too much time after being told that for the first time, I got a laptop and started exploring YouTube, and yeah, people really hated this shit with a passion and vitriol that in hindsight is startling.
George Lucas raped a childhood.
For as much as I enjoy and respect the Mr. Plinkett reviews, for example, I really do think they did some absolutely crazy harm and damage to internet discourse about this franchise, like, forever. People try to emulate that same sardonic and cynical attitude without the self-awareness that makes red letter media so endearing, to the point that it becomes toxic and harmful. Not that, honestly, there aren't plenty of toxic elements to the original Mr. Plinkett reviews, because there are, and I think that now Mike knows this, but it's like gotten way out of hand of those original few flaws. My point is, I remember in the 2010s when prequel hate was at its absolute peak, right before The Force Awakens. I remember in 2019 when suddenly everyone loved the prequels again, right after The Rise of Skywalker.
They fly now!
And now I'm living through the 2020s where everyone hates everything and it's just exhausting. But in 10 years, there will be people who love, remember, defend, and cherish the new trilogy and the Disney Plus content because to them, like Revenge of the Sith is to me, those things were always Star Wars. And I think that's both the best and worst part of Star Wars. Star Wars is a franchise that is riddled with contradictions, confusion, and messy artistry. It's kind of the point where I have a hard time even defining exactly what Star Wars is or supposed to be beyond what it just is, like, to me. And revisiting Revenge of the Sith this weekend really made me realize that. And is why today I want to spend a little bit of time looking back at my 20 years with Revenge of the Sith. It's also at this point that I should probably admit that Revenge of the Sith is my favorite Star Wars film and has been for a long time. I'm not saying that it's the best, because it isn't, but it really, truly is my favorite. First, when this movie works, I think it really works. This opening battle over Coruscant is the perfect blend of like technology, CGI-driven action that the prequels are built on, and the adventurous, funny energy of the original trilogy. I'm not saying that every joke lands, because they don't, but the recurring elevator bit and shenanigans with R2 made me genuinely laugh when I was kind of more expecting to cringe. And I think that the slapstick-style introduction does a good job of creating a really strong contrast with the almost absurdly dark ending of the film. And that's really why I find this movie so fascinating, because I think it boils down the essence of Star Wars both as a franchise and a story, and is something just, like, very easy to swallow. This movie, like the franchise, whips back and forth between the coolest shit ever put into a blockbuster and some of the worst shit that I've ever seen with my eyeballs. And I mean this from just actual storytelling to special effects. Some shots look unfathomably good, and others look like a cartoon. This movie is also both held back by its 5 predecessors, and yet only watchable because of those predecessors. Specifically, this film puts in so much work to make Anakin, Obi-Wan, and Padme have interesting relationships, because episodes 1 and 2 just like totally fail to do so at any convincing level. Simultaneously, it can be hard to feel curious about the nature and direction of this film's story, because everyone has always known what's going to happen, given that it's a prequel to the most recognizable IP of all time. With that in mind, this movie was doomed to disappoint and not work, and yet it kind of weirdly does work, both because of its own merits and also because of what it adds to the original trilogy in terms of story and detail. Like, when I sit back and look at this movie as a whole, it's the one which feels the most Star Wars to me. Like, if I had to pick a film to represent the franchise, it would be this one. Is that what everyone would say? Is that even what most people would say? No, obviously. But when I think about Star Wars as the work of George Lucas, which is also a controversial way to look at it, Revenge of the Sith feels like the most George Lucas of all the Star Wars films. Like, this is the movie he always wanted, or at least like a type of movie he wanted to make. Is that necessarily a good thing? Well, no, but it is what it is. This movie is long. It has an atrocious second act. The characters are stiff and rigid and weird. Most characters aren't developed at all, even though this is at minimum their third film. There is way too much shit on screen all the time. The environments feel cold and unpopulated because they're fake. But also, like, I don't know. This movie easily has the best score out of the entire saga. There are a few scenes which I genuinely feel are among the best in Star Wars because they make me feel the most. This scene of Anakin and Padme looking at each other across the city always touches me. The Mustafar fight is, of course, incredible, even though it goes on for far too long. Ewan McGregor and Natalie Portman give some pretty good performances, even when they have almost nothing to work with. I love the slow degradation of the tone, and even though the politics are fairly shallow and get made fun of all the time, they're politics for a mainstream audience and, of course, children.
Adults cannot understand children level ideas, okay? Child level ideas, child level. How can you not understand it?
And in that sense, they're fairly timeless and easy to apply to a variety of political lessons and issues, just like they're supposed to be. And yes, Anakin killing the kids, choking his pregnant wife, and then being dismembered and burned alive is a pretty bold ending for a film of this caliber. And then there's Anakin himself, who I looked at differently this time around. For a long time, people have made fun of Anakin, both just as a poorly written character and due to a bad performance from Hayden Christensen. And I get it. Halfway through this movie, me and my buddy Josh were laughing about how stupid Anakin is, especially given how shocked he reacts when Palpatine finally just has to, like, come right out and say that he's a Sith Lord, since Anakin just wasn't getting it from any of the, like, 100 not subtle, evil fucking things that Palpatine had already said to him during the movie. But by the end of it all, I had to kind of, like, take a step back and think about this character more both in and out of the context of the film itself. First, let me offer myself up for more crucifixion by saying that I don't actually think Hayden Christensen is that bad in this movie. I know that maybe he's not as hot a take as it used to be, like he's kind of been redeemed and forgiven by time in recent years, but in Attack the Clones still, I think he's pretty weak because of his material, but in Revenge of the Sith, his performance really works for me, especially when he's not speaking. But as for the character Christensen is playing, I think it's important to remember that he's only 22. He's younger than I am. He's basically a kid and has, like, the most important things in the world put on him, with nobody there to help him. The one person who can really support him is Padme, who he has to keep a secret from the people who are supposed to be his family. And not only that, but the people who are supposed to be his family, the Jedi, don't trust him and manipulate him. Palpatine, meanwhile, takes advantage of this by convincing Anakin that he's the only one who actually trusts him. I'm not saying all of this is particularly nuanced or expertly woven together or anything, but I do think it makes sense and comes to a logical and convincing breaking point when Anakin finds out Palpatine is a Sith and then turns to the dark side. Anakin takes the knowledge that Palpatine is a Sith to Mace Windu, who decides to act on it himself rather than bringing Anakin with him, even saying,
"If what you've told me is true, you will have gained my trust."
So even when Anakin does the right thing, exactly what Mace Windu and the Council asked him to do, it's not enough. When Anakin finds Mace Windu about to execute Palpatine later, Christensen does a fantastic job of showing just how confused this kid really is before he's forced to act and just, like, snaps, saving Palpatine and finally giving himself over to the one place he's truly accepted for who he is: the dark side. In discussing this with Josh afterwards, my buddy said, "I really blame Mace Windu for everything," and honestly, Josh, I totally agree. Fundamentally, Revenge of the Sith is a film about systems, and Mace Windu represents the system of the Jedi establishment. He's mistrusting, stoic, judgmental, harsh, and morally unyielding. And remember, this is the system which is supposed to be the good one, the family that takes Anakin in, which they do, but they really only take in the parts of him that they like, want, or feel like they can use. In this sense, I think Anakin is an interesting and timely character, especially when you view him as a symbol for any kind of radicalized youth or someone going down a violent political pipeline. Culturally, Anakin has become a symbol for anger and lashing out. Specifically, that anger and lashing out for young men is not just cool, but tragic and most importantly, inevitable. That nothing good in the world will stay that way. That your friends and your lovers and your family and the systems they support will all collapse, fail, and betray you. And that when that happens, the only thing left to do is hurt them back. Anakin is caught between two systems, the Jedi and the Sith, the complacency of the Republic and the allure of the Empire. Neither gives him what he really wants or needs. Neither are effective at actualizing what Anakin wants, and one restricts him while the other offers him freedom. And to be clear, I'm not saying that any group or system which just allows people to do whatever they want is the good or the right one. My point here is just that the Jedi are hypocrites, and Lucas wants you to recognize them as misguided hypocrites, destroyed by their own hubris.
Only a Sith deals in absolutes.
The things that they ask Anakin to repress, specifically his love for Padme, are not things that Lucas or most people feel should actually be repressed. And I think it's easy to read this in a number of different ways. Anakin is everything from like a gay kid in a religious household to a neurodivergent kid in a family that doesn't know how to support him and instead tries to hide him. At his most basic level though, Anakin is just lonely and misunderstood, an easy target for radicalization. Of course, everything Palpatine offers Anakin is false. It's a seduction built on lies and exploitation, boiling down, of course, to power. Having recently read the journals of the Columbine shooters, the kid behind the Charleston church shooting, the New Zealand mosque shooter, and a handful of others, Anakin really made me think of all the real-world radicalized young men we have who are adrift, lonely, angry, and, rightly or wrongly, feel like they don't fit in, that they have no place in between modern systems, and eventually just explode in acts of violence because they don't know anything else. So by the end of the film, when Anakin is burning in the lava, I think his final line works on a number of levels. Obi-Wan has this long, passionate speech about how much Anakin meant to him and all of the great things Anakin could have done, to which Anakin just responds, there really is nothing else for him to say here. At the end of the day, Anakin is a scared, angry, and hateful kid who doesn't know how to do anything other than lash out. Palpatine and the radical system he embodies have robbed Anakin of everything good in his life, and convinced him that he never had anything good to begin with. And within the actual themes of the film, Lucas is of course just reminding us that at the end of the day, this is all the Sith and the dark side have to offer. Hate. And that, of course, the natural way to defeat this is through love. Ironic, given that the Jedi do not allow Anakin to love Padme. Another irony I noticed on this viewing is that Palpatine lies to Anakin by promising him they can use the Force to conquer death. This ends up not being true, but we learn at the end of the film that someone else, Qui-Gon Jinn, has in a way learned how to do this and has been appearing to Yoda as a Force ghost. I don't think this is a mistake on Lucas's part. Rather, I think it's his way of saying that the important things in life, whether that be loving while living or living beyond life through love, come with work and time and effort and cannot just be given or promised, as the Sith try to do. This is why I feel the story of Anakin is very obviously the story of Star Wars itself, but specifically, I think the story of Anakin really is this film. But the thing is, Star Wars is not just this film, and vice versa. This film and Star Wars in general are both huge, complicated monsters. There are like 100 characters in this movie alone, and maybe 3 of them matter. And yet, while watching this, I found myself knowing the names of almost every random glup shitto who appears at the edge of the frame, not because they're iconic characters or important or because their names are ever even said, but because, of course, they exist far beyond just these films, both in other pieces of media and also just as, well, products themselves. Which brings me to my final point. Star Wars is an impossible franchise and will continue to be an impossible franchise. I really don't think this is a franchise which will ever please everyone ever again, because it's not just one story anymore. Honestly, I don't think it's even a story at all at this point. Instead, Star Wars is a sandbox. Like, for me at least, almost everything that I actually love, or have ever loved, or feel like I love, about this franchise almost exists like outside of the movies and stories themselves. And this is not me saying that the movies and story don't matter, because of course they do. They are the real art, but like it or not, Capitalism and just the basic way we experience movies has made Star Wars into more than just a series of films. It's become an experience that every person has a unique relationship with. You see this in everything from the toys, the comics, the video games, the books, the cartoons, the entire expanded universe, everything. I will never, ever forget or regret all the hours I spent with my Star Wars action figures as a kid. I'll never forget the hours me and my buddies put into LEGO Star Wars, or my childhood friend Ryan just absolutely kicking my ass in the duel mode of Revenge of the Sith video game. When I was in elementary school, we would all choose different characters and make up our own and pretend to have lightsaber fights at recess. I sent the characters on new journeys with my toys and upgraded random side characters to main heroes. What I'm getting at here is not just childhood nostalgia. It's the fact that the Star Wars galaxy you can create in your head is always going to be more personal, more exciting, more emotional, and more unique than the Star Wars galaxy you get to see on screen. It just is. The beauty of the world George Lucas gave us is that it's a sandbox. It's huge and infinite. It's so easy to insert yourself into that universe as whoever or whatever you want to be. It's so easy to build your own lightsaber, choose your own force powers, fight your own battles. It's so easy and so fun that anytime your eyes are on the screen watching what actually happens, your brain is likely to be off somewhere else, thinking about what isn't happening. Revenge of the Sith really highlights this, with its slew of characters in different places doing different things, from the Wookiees on Kashyyyk to every Jedi killed during Order 66. These aren't real characters at all, but they have a weight and a meaning they don't deserve because we want them to be characters. Or at least, like, I do. But the movies don't give us that. And should they? I don't know. That's not for me to decide. And from an artistic standpoint, I almost feel like it shouldn't matter. But culturally, I think it does. And so while Revenge of the Sith is, to me, the most unique film in the saga, it also highlights the saga's biggest weakness. The just basic, like, capitalist nature of the whole enterprise. The mass media, the fan expectations, the toys, the burdensome and often terrible, if not useless lore, the wealth of characters who do nothing and say nothing, but still inspire the love and ire of fans. And honestly, I don't even know how fair any of that is to assign to this movie or the franchise in general. Maybe all of it. Maybe none of it. But at the end of the day, I'm glad that I got to revisit Revenge of the Sith in theaters because I never got to see it in theaters the first time. I can't imagine what it would have been like going into this on opening night, and honestly can't even remember or judge this film as something by itself because to me, it has always been just one piece in a really big puzzle. It has never really been Revenge of the Sith to me, but always just Star Wars. But seeing it in theaters, without rewatching anything around it, let me kind of appreciate this one movie for what it was, and appreciate who I've always been as me and this movie kind of grew up together. And finally, after, or maybe because of 20 years of Revenge of the Sith, I think I finally understand, at least a little bit better, what Star Wars is to me. But what is it to you?